The sky was dark. Clouds moved fast, covering the moon. The wind was strong, and the trees outside Zoya's house shook like they were afraid. Zoya, a 16-year-old girl, sat on the floor near her little brother Ahil. He was sleeping with a small smile on his face. Their mother, Fariha, was in the kitchen boiling rice. That's all they had for dinner, plain rice and salt. Life was hard after Zoya's father died last year in a road accident. He was a kind man, a simple mechanic. He never had much, but he gave his family love and peace. Now peace was gone. Sudden fire, Zoya smelled something strange, like burning plastic. "Ammi?" she called out. No answer. She stood and walked towards the kitchen. Suddenly, boom! A loud blast threw her back. The door to the kitchen burst open, and fire came out like an angry monster. "Ammi!" Zoya screamed. Flames spread fast. Curtains caught fire. Smoke filled the room. Zoya grabbed Ahil. He woke up crying. She ran to the kitchen. But the fire was too strong. She couldn't see her mother. Only fire. And silence. "Ammi, please." No voice came back. Tears poured down Zoya's face, but she had to move. She ran with Ahil out of the house. Outside, the neighbors came running. Some tried to bring water. Others called for help. Zoya stood in the street, barefoot, in her nightdress, holding her crying brother. Behind her, her world was burning. The morning after, when the sun rose, everything was gone. The fire team found a body in the kitchen. Zoya didn't want to believe it. She begged the police officer, please. Maybe she ran outside. Maybe she's still alive. But the officer's face said it all. Her mother was gone. Now, Zoya and Ahil had no parents, no home, no money. They sat on the pavement, surrounded by ash, smoke, and pain. Zoya whispered, "God, why? Why again?" A kind woman gave them a blanket and some bread. Zoya fed Ahil, but she didn't eat. Something inside her had broken. A man in black. As the sun went down, most people left. Zoya sat under a tree, hugging Ahil. Then, a black car stopped near them. A man stepped out. He was tall, wearing dark glasses. His face was hard, serious. He looked at Zoya for a moment, then said, "I heard what happened. You have no one?" Zoya stayed quiet. "I can help," he said. "There's a shelter nearby, a place for girls like you." His voice was calm, but cold. Zoya looked at Ahil. He was tired and hungry again. "Will they take us both?" she asked. The man nodded slowly. "Yes. You'll be safe." Zoya stood up. She had no choice, nowhere else to go. But something inside her whispered, "Be careful." The shelter. The car stopped in front of a tall building. The windows were covered with bars. A big iron gate stood in front. A woman came out to welcome them. Her name was Miss Rima. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Poor girl," she said, touching Zoya's cheek. "Don't worry, you're safe now." Inside, the rooms were small and cold. Many girls were sitting silently on beds, staring at walls. Zoya was given a small room with 2 beds. "You'll stay here," Miss Rima said. "Your brother will stay in the boys' wing." Zoya didn't like that. "No, please. He's just 6. I want him with me." But Miss Rima smiled again, this time with less kindness. Rules are rules. Zoya hugged Ahil tightly before he was taken away. Her heart felt heavy. Something wasn't right. Meeting Ruby. That night, Zoya couldn't sleep. The room was quiet. Only the sound of soft breathing came from the other bed. In the morning, she finally met the other girl in the room. Her name was Ruby. She had short hair, dark eyes, and a tired smile. "You're new," Ruby said, chewing on dry toast. Zoya nodded. "I saw your house on fire," Ruby said. "It was on the news." Zoya stayed silent. After a moment, Ruby whispered, "You won't like it here." Zoya looked at her. Why? Ruby looked around, then leaned in closer. Because this place isn't what it seems. Strange things over the next few days. Zoya noticed strange things. Girls whispered in the corners, but went quiet when Miss Rima walked in. One girl was taken away at night and never came back. Another girl who cried too much was sent to a special doctor and returned the next. Day silent and pale. Zoya asked Ruby, "Where are the girls going?" Ruby looked scared. "Don't ask. They say they're adopted, but no one ever hears from them again." Zoya's fear grew. A hidden phone call-on night, Zoya tried to call a distant aunt using the shelter's phone. She dialed the number and waited. Suddenly, Miss Rima grabbed the phone from her hand. "No personal calls," she shouted. "You're not allowed!" Zoya felt her hands shake. "Why?" she asked. Miss Rima's face darkened. "Because we said so. This is your home now. Forget the past." That night, Zoya cried silently in her pillow. She wasn't safe. Not here, but where could she go? The whisper. Behind the door. 2 days later, Zoya passed by Miss Rima's office. The door was slightly open. She heard Miss Rima speaking on the phone. "Yes, this one is special. Her father's name was Aftab. Malik, I think she's the one we were looking for." Zoya froze. What did that mean? She ran back to her room and locked the door. Her father? Why were they talking about her father? Morning light came through the dusty window. Zoya sat on the edge of her bed, thinking about the voice she had heard behind the office door. Her father's name was Aftab Malik. I think she's the one we were looking for. What did Miss Rima mean by that? Her father had died 1 year ago. He was a mechanic, a simple man with kind eyes. Why would anyone at the shelter talk about him? Zoya's heart was full of fear and questions, but she had no answers and no one to ask. Life inside the shelter. The shelter looked normal from the outside. The building was clean and the staff wore polite smiles. But inside, the air felt heavy, like sadness was everywhere. Girls were not allowed outside without permission. Phone calls were controlled. Lights were off at 9 p.m. sharp. Zoya noticed something strange. Most of the girls were quiet, too quiet. They didn't laugh. They didn't ask questions. They moved like shadows. Only one girl stayed close to Zoya, Ruby. Ruby's story one evening, when the lights were off but the moonlight was strong, Ruby sat beside Zoya and whispered, "I had a sister. Her name was Nida. We both came here last year." Zoya looked at her. "She was smart, strong, always protecting me," Ruby said, her voice shaking. "Then one night, Miss Rima said she had been chosen for a new family. She was lucky." Zoya held her breath. She hugged me, said goodbye, but she promised she'd write. Ruby looked away, tears falling down her cheek. She never did. Zoya touched her hand. "Maybe she couldn't write?" Ruby shook her head. "No, something happened. I feel it." There was silence for a while, then Ruby said something that made Zoya freeze. "The girls who leave here never come back, and they never contact anyone." Zoya's plan. That night, Zoya made a silent promise. She would protect her brother Ahil, and she would find out what was really going on in this place. The next day, she asked Miss Rima if she could visit the boys' wing to see her brother. Miss Rima smiled, but her eyes didn't. "He's fine. He's making new friends. You'll see him next week." Zoya tried again. "Can I send him a note?" "No," Miss Rima said firmly. "No notes. He's busy with his schedule." Zoya felt something cold in her chest. Why wouldn't they let her see her own brother? The girls' assembly on Friday morning. All the girls were called into the main hall. Miss Rima stood in front of them with 2 men in suits. "These kind men work with a wonderful adoption agency," she said with a wide smile. "They're here to meet some of you." Zoya saw the fear in the girls' eyes. One by one, names were called. The girls stood and walked slowly to the front. Zoya wasn't called, but Ruby was. She held Zoya's hand tightly before standing. "I'm scared," she whispered. Zoya looked at her. "I'll find you later, okay?" Ruby nodded and walked to the front with shaking legs. That was the last time Zoya saw her that day. The empty bed. That night, Ruby didn't return to their room. Zoya asked the staff, "Where's Ruby?" "She's gone to a better place." One woman said with a fake smile. "What do you mean?" "She was adopted." "Where? Who took her?" The woman's smile disappeared. "Don't ask questions, girl. Be thankful. Maybe you'll be lucky next." Zoya's stomach turned. Ruby wouldn't just leave like that, not without saying goodbye. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The manager's office at midnight. While the rest of the building slept, Zoya got out of bed. She wore soft slippers and moved slowly, careful not to make a sound. She had seen where Miss Rima kept her keys. Zoya tiptoed down the hall and into the office area. The main door was locked, but one of the windows was slightly open. She pushed it gently and climbed in. Inside, the room smelled like perfume and paper. There were shelves full of files. Zoya walked to the drawer labeled Adoption Records. She pulled it open and searched. Her hand stopped on one file, Nita Khan, Ruby's sister. The file had a photo. A smiling girl. Zoya opened the file. Inside, one stamped paper. Adopted by international family. No address. No contact info. No follow-up reports, just nothing. She looked for Ruby's name, but there was no file yet. Suddenly, she heard footsteps. Someone was coming. Zoya panicked, shoved the file back, and ran toward the window. She barely made it out before the door opened. From the shadows, she saw Miss Rima step into the room, phone in hand. "Yes," she whispered. "The second one is ready. She'll disappear by tomorrow." Zoya's heart stopped. Second one? Were they talking about Ruby or her? A letter. From the past back in her room, Zoya couldn't sleep. Her head was full of fear. She stared at Ruby's empty bed. Her fingers touched the frame, and she felt something under the pillow, a piece of paper. She pulled it out. It was a letter. "If you find this, I don't know where I'll be, but don't stay here. Zoya sat on her bed with her hands in her lap. The walls around her felt like they were closing in. Ruby was gone. The bed next to hers was empty. Miss Rima said Zoya would be adopted tomorrow, but deep inside, she knew it wasn't adoption. It was something else. Something dark. Her brother, Ahil, was somewhere in the boy's wing. She hadn't seen him for days, and now she was running out of time. The map clue. Zoya took out Ruby's secret note from her pillow. Her hands shook as she read it again. "Go to the small garden behind the building. Ask the old man about the map. He knew my sister. He might help you too." Zoya had never seen any old man in the shelter, but she had never been to the, back garden either. At lunch, she looked out the side window. Behind the shelter, through a broken gate, was a small garden with dry trees and an old wooden bench. No cameras, no staff, just silence. She knew she had to go. The risky walk that evening. When most girls were watching TV in the common hall, Zoya quietly slipped through the hallway. Her heart pounded. She passed the locked boys section. Still no sign of Ahil. She made her way through the kitchen and out the back door. Cold air touched her face as she stepped into the garden. Dry leaves crunched under her feet. Then she saw him, an old man sitting on the broken bench, feeding birds with dry rice. Zoya walked slowly toward him. The old man, he looked up at her. His eyes were kind but tired. "You are Zoya," he said softly. Zoya stopped. "How do you know me?" He gave a sad smile. You look like your father. Zoya's heart skipped a beat. You knew my father? She whispered. The man nodded. He helped me once, a long time ago. He was a good man. Zoya sat beside him. Your name? People here just call me Baba. I used to be the gardener, until they replaced me. Now I just sit and watch. Zoya handed him the letter Ruby had left. She said you knew something. Something about her. Sister. About this place. Baba read the note and nodded. Yes. I remember Nita. She came here smiling. She left in silence. He looked into the trees and whispered, This place hides secrets behind clean walls. The hidden letter Baba stood up and walked to a broken stone wall near the bench. He touched one of the stones and pulled it out. Behind it was a small hole. He reached inside and took out an old folded letter. This was from Nita, he said, handing it to Zoya. She gave it to me the night before she was taken. Told me to keep it hidden until the right person came. Zoya opened the letter. If something happens to me, tell my sister. This place is not real. They sell girls. Fake adoptions. Rich people from outside the country. I found papers in the office. Names, money, documents. Some girls were taken to another house. Not adopted. Be careful. Save others if you can. Zoya's eyes filled with tears. It was true. Everything. This shelter was a trap. The secret room. Zoya looked at Baba. She said there's another house? Baba nodded. Yes. An old farmhouse. They take girls there before they vanish. You must not go alone. Zoya stood up. I have to find my brother first, then we'll escape. Baba held her hand. It's dangerous, child. They watch everything. Zoya's voice was firm. I'm not leaving without him. Before she left, Baba gave her a small paper. A map. It shows a way to the storage room. There's a back entrance to the boys' wing through it. Zoya took it with both hands, her eyes filled with purpose. Thank you, Baba. He smiled gently. God is with the brave. Back inside, Zoya returned quietly through the kitchen. No one saw her. She hid the letter and map under her mattress. Her hands were dirty. Her heart was heavy, but her eyes were filled with fire. She couldn't trust anyone, not even the other girls. That night, Miss Rima knocked on her door. Zoya opened it slowly. Pack your things, Miss Rima said. Your new family arrives tomorrow morning. Zoya nodded with a fake smile, but inside, she was planning her escape. The warning later that night, another girl named Sana came to Zoya's room. She was quiet, thin, with sad eyes. She looked around, nervously, then whispered, I heard what you're doing. Zoya's heart stopped. What do you mean? She asked. Don't worry, Sana said. I want to help. Zoya stared at her. Sana continued. They said the same things to my sister, that she'd be adopted. She never came back. Zoya whispered, Can I trust you? Sana nodded slowly. If you run, take me too. Zoya thought for a moment. Tomorrow night. Be ready. Zoya stepped into the dark tunnel. The door closed behind her with a soft click, and everything went quiet. There were no lights, only the faint sound of, water dripping from the old stone walls. She took out the small torch Baba had given her earlier. The weak light showed a narrow path ahead. The tunnel smelled like mold and dust. The air was heavy. But Zoya kept walking. She had one goal: find Hill, escape together. Before the morning came, the path to the boys' wing. The tunnel seemed endless. Zoya walked for 10 minutes before she saw an old metal gate at the end of the path. It was half open. She pushed it slowly and stepped into a small storage room filled with broken furniture and boxes. She looked around. In the corner was another door. This one had a small label, boys section, staff. Only Zoya's heart raced. She had made it. She quietly opened the door and stepped into a hallway. The lights were dim, and the place felt abandoned. But then she heard it. A child's cough. Finding Ahil, Zoya followed the sound until she reached a row of small rooms. The doors were numbered. She peeked into room 4, and there he was, Ahil, sitting on his bed holding a small toy truck. "Zoya!" he gasped, and ran to her. She hugged him tightly. Tears ran down her cheeks. "I thought I lost you," he whispered. "I'm here now," Zoya said, "but we don't have much time. We need to go." Ahil looked confused. "Where?" "Somewhere safe, away from this place." Ahil nodded. "Okay, I trust you." Zoya packed his small bag, grabbed his hand, and led him back into the tunnel. But as they reached the storage room again, someone was waiting, a voice in the dark. "Where do you think you're going?" Zoya froze. It was Sana, the girl who promised to help. But her face wasn't kind now. She had a walkie-talkie in one hand and a cruel smile on her lips. "You really thought you could escape?" she said coldly. Zoya's heart sank. "You lied." "I had to," Sana said. "Miss Rima promised me a chance to leave this place. All I had to do was tell her what you were planning." Ahil hid behind Zoya. Zoya stared at Sana. "You were scared just like me. Why would you help them?" Sana looked down. "Because I gave up hope." Then her voice softened. "But maybe you haven't." She threw the walkie-talkie into a box. "I told them you'd try tomorrow night. You still have a chance. Go." Zoya couldn't believe it. "Why are you helping now?" Sana didn't answer. She just whispered, "Run before I change my mind. Escape." Zoya grabbed Ahil's hand again and ran back into the tunnel. They moved faster this time. At the end of the tunnel near the garden, the air grew warmer. They were getting close to the exit, but then a sudden crash. The back door to the kitchen had opened. Flashlights, voices. "They're running! Find them!" Miss Rima's voice echoed through the walls. Zoya pulled Ahil into the shadows and ducked behind a wall. She held her breath. Footsteps passed by. They waited. Then when it was silent again, they slipped out the garden gate. The outside world. 4. The first time in weeks, Zoya stepped outside the shelter walls. The night air was cold but fresh. She looked up. Stars were shining, but there was no time to stop. She remembered what Baba had said. "If you escape, go to the yellow house on Moti Street. The woman there knows your father." Zoya carried Ahil on her back and walked through narrow streets. Her feet hurt. Her hands were bleeding. But she didn't stop. Every step was a step toward freedom. The yellow house, just before sunrise, they found. A small yellow house at the end of a quiet lane. Zoya knocked. No answer. She knocked again. Finally, the door opened. An old woman with silver hair looked out. Her eyes widened when she saw Zoya and Ahil. "You're Aftab Malik's daughter?" she asked. Zoya nodded. The woman pulled them inside quickly. "My name is Mrs. Farida," she said. "Your father saved my life once. Come in, child. You're safe now." Zoya collapsed on the floor, holding Ahil. She had made it, but the fight wasn't over, a shocking discovery. Mrs. Farida gave them warm food and a blanket. Zoya told her everything, about the shelter, the missing girls, and Ruby. The old woman listened carefully. Then she stood up and opened a wooden chest. She took out a dusty folder. "I think you should see this," she said. Zoya opened it slowly. Inside were photographs, documents, and something that made her heart stop. A letter from her father, dated 1 year ago, before his death. The letter from Father Zoya read the letter aloud, tears falling with every word. "If anything happens to me, it won't be an accident. I've discovered something dangerous. That shelter is not what it claims to be. I tried to expose them. I told the police. But someone warned me to stop. If this letter reaches you, it means I failed. But you must not. Trust Baba. Trust Farida. And trust the voice inside you. God doesn't always show the path in sunlight. Sometimes, he waits for us to walk forward in the dark. Zoya held the letter to her chest. Her father had known. He had tried to stop them, and now it was her turn. The sun rose slowly over the city. Zoya sat by the window in Mrs. Farida's house, holding her father's letter tightly. Her eyes were tired, but her mind was full of fire. She had escaped the shelter. She had saved Ahil, but she knew this was just the beginning. My father tried to stop them. Now it's my turn, she whispered. Mrs. Farida brought her some tea. Rest for a while, child. You've been through too much. Zoya shook her head. I can't rest. Not until I expose what they're doing to those girls. A friend from the past, Mrs. Farida, made a phone call. She whispered a name. Detective Imran. He was your father's friend, she told Zoya. He trusted him. Maybe he'll help. An hour later, a tall man with a kind face and tired eyes walked into the house. He looked at Zoya carefully. You're Aftab's daughter, he said quietly. Zoya nodded. I owe your father my life, he added. Tell me everything. Zoya told him everything. The shelter, the fake adoptions, Ruby's disappearance, Sana's warning, and the tunnel. Imran listened silently. Then he stood up and said, there might still be files in their system. Proof. We'll need it. Back to the shelter. Secret mission. That night, under cover of darkness, Zoya, Imran, and another officer returned to the shelter. They didn't go through the front gate. They went through the garden. Baba was waiting for them, sitting quietly on the broken bench. I knew you'd come back, he said, his eyes calm. Zoya smiled and hugged him. I came to finish it. Baba showed them another way inside, through an old supply door near the laundry room. This leads to the office area, he whispered. Imran and Zoya entered carefully, using flashlights. The director's office. The office was dark and silent. But the computers were still there. Imran sat down and started working on the files. Zoya searched the drawers and cupboards. Suddenly, she found a black folder locked inside a metal box. She forced it open. Inside were adoption papers, names, photos, and money records. Girls listed as adopted by foreign families. But none of those families existed. Zoya's hands shook. This is it, she said. This is what we need. Imran copied everything to a flash drive. Then he looked at her. Let's go before someone finds us. Caught in the act, but just as they reached the hallway, Miss Rima appeared. Her face was cold, her eyes full of anger. You just couldn't stay quiet, could you? She hissed. Zoya stood in front of Imran. You lied to us. You hurt those girls. We know everything now. Miss Rima smiled cruelly. You think anyone will believe a child like you? But then, Imran stepped forward and held up his badge. Try me, he said. You're under investigation. Two police officers entered behind him. Miss Rima tried to run, but it was too late. The truth had finally caught up. The shelter breaks by morning. The shelter was surrounded by police. News cameras arrived. Other girls who were scared before started to speak. Sana gave her full statement. She told reporters everything. One by one, the secrets of the fake shelter were exposed. Zoya watched from the side, holding Ahil's hand. She had started a storm, and now the world was listening. Ruby's sister returns. 3 days later, something happened that made Zoya cry again, but this time with joy. A woman knocked on Mrs. Farida's door. She looked tired but strong. "I'm Ruby's sister," she said. Zoya ran to her and hugged her tight. "I have news," the woman said. "Ruby is alive. They moved her to the farmhouse 2 weeks ago, but we found her." Zoya's heart burst with relief. Ruby was safe. The truth had saved her. Zoya's words to the world. A few days later, a journalist asked Zoya if she wanted to say something on the news. She stood in front of the camera, nervous but brave. She spoke slowly, in simple words. "They tried to break me. They tried to scare me. But I remembered something my father said. God doesn't always show the path in sunlight. Sometimes he waits for us to walk forward in the dark. I walked in the dark, and I found the truth. Please, if you're scared, speak. If you're trapped, try. Someone will listen. Someone will help. And remember, you're only one step away from freedom. Don't give up." The final scene. Peace and purpose weeks passed. Zoya and Ahil now lived with Mrs. Farida. They went to school. They played in the garden. They laughed again. Sometimes Zoya still had bad dreams. But every morning, she opened her eyes and remembered she was free. She had saved others. She had become the voice her father once was, and now she had her own dream: to build a real shelter, a safe place, a home for girls with no home. She whispered one last time under the stars, "I trusted God in the dark, and he led me to the light." It had been 3 months since the shelter shut down. The court case was still going on, but Miss Rima and her team were behind bars. Zoya had become a name people recognized. Her story was in newspapers. Her voice was on TV. But she didn't want fame. She wanted change. She wanted to help the girls who were still afraid, still silent. And most of all, she wanted to build something that felt like home. A dream is born one morning, while having tea with Mrs. Farida, Zoya shared her heart. "I want to start a real shelter," she said. "Not like the one I escaped. A real place, safe, warm, honest." Mrs. Farida smiled. "Then we will build it, one brick at a time." They called it the House of Light. It was a small home at first, just 2 rooms and a kitchen, but it had big love. Zoya painted the front wall herself with a message: "You are safe here. You are seen. You are loved." The first guests. The first girl arrived 2 weeks later. Her name was Ronnie. She was only 11 and hadn't spoken a word in days. She had been abandoned by her uncle and left near a train station. Zoya didn't push her. She gave her food, a soft bed, a toy bear, and every night Zoya sat beside her and told her stories. By the 6th night, Ronnie whispered, "Thank you." Zoya cried silently. That whisper meant the world. It meant the walls of fear were breaking. Building a Team Zoya. Couldn't do it alone. She needed people with the same heart. Sana, the girl who once almost betrayed her, returned one day. "I want to help," she said. Zoya looked into her eyes. This time, there was no fear, only strength. "You're welcome," Zoya smiled. Soon, other volunteers joined. Old teachers, doctors, and kind neighbors. Even Ruby's sister started helping part-time, teaching art to the girls. The small shelter was becoming a true family. 1. Letter changes. Everything one evening, as Zoya cleaned the kitchen, Mrs. Farida handed her an envelope. "It came for you," she said. Zoya opened it slowly. It was written in a handwriting she didn't recognize. "I know who really caused your father's accident. The truth is bigger than Miss Rima. If you want to know more, come to the old library at 9 p.m. Come alone." Zoya froze. Her hands trembled. Someone knew the real reason her father had died. A dangerous choice. That night, Zoya sat in her room, staring at the letter. She wanted to forget it. She had peace now, safety, love. But her father's face came into her mind, his smile, his courage, and his letter. If anything happens to me, it won't be an accident. She took a deep breath. Then she stood up. She had made one shelter. Now, she needed to uncover another secret. The old library. The streets were dark and quiet. Zoya walked quickly, her hood pulled over her head. She reached the broken gate of the old library and slipped inside. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling. Dust covered every table, but in the far corner a man stood waiting. His face was hidden in the shadows. "Who are you?" Zoya asked, her voice steady. "I used to work with your father," the man said. "Before he died, he gave me something. I didn't know what to do with it, until I saw you on the news." He handed her a small box. Inside were old photographs, phone records, and a USB drive, and a final note from her father. The note from her father. Zoya opened the folded paper. It was short. "Zoya, if you're reading this, it means you've walked through fire. I'm proud of you, but there's one more step, one more truth. Miss Rima was just the front. Someone else gave the orders, someone bigger. If you can bring them down, many more children will be saved. I believe in you." Papa Zoya's eyes filled with tears. Even in death, her father was guiding her. Back to the shelter of light, Zoya returned home just before midnight. Sana was waiting at the gate. She looked worried. "Where were you?" she asked. Zoya smiled, gently, following the next light. She didn't share everything, not yet. But inside she knew. Her fight wasn't over. It had only just begun. Zoya sat alone in her room, the box from the old library open in front of her. Photos, documents, USB drive, and her father's final words. Miss Rima was just the front. Someone else gave the orders. Zoya now knew what she had to do. She had brought down the shelter. She had saved the girls. But she hadn't found the real person who started it all. Not yet. The clues in the USB. The next morning, she met Detective Imran at a quiet tea stall far from the city center. She handed him the USB. "These files were hidden by my father," she said. "He trusted you." Imran plugged it into his laptop and clicked through the folders. There were emails, bank transfers, and a list of names. Then he stopped. He zoomed in on one email. From Dr. Adil Noman to Rima Yusuf. Subject: transfer confirmation. For 5 girls. Zoya felt her heart drop. "Dr. Adil," she said, confused. "The head of the city's child welfare department?" Imran nodded slowly. "Yes, and a highly respected man." Zoya clenched her fists. So the real enemy was sitting above everyone the whole time. A mask of respect. Dr. Adil was a man people trusted. He wore suits, spoke on TV, gave lectures about child safety. But behind that mask, he was selling girls like they were nothing. Zoya felt sick. "No one will believe me," she whispered. "He's too powerful." Imran looked at her. "They will, if we find the right proof." An unexpected helper. That evening, Sana came into Zoya's room with wide eyes. "You won't believe who came to the shelter today," she said. "It was Maya, Miss Rima's assistant. She looked scared." Zoya rushed downstairs. Maya stood in the doorway holding a bag. "I can't carry this secret anymore," she said, her voice shaking. "Rima was cruel, but she always said, 'I'm just following orders.' And those orders came from Dr. Adil." Zoya stared at her. "Why are you telling us now?" Maya looked down. "I saw what you did. You saved girls. You risked your life. You did what I was too afraid to do." Then she handed Zoya the bag. Inside were handwritten notes, photos, and one recorded phone call. The call was between Rima and Dr. Adil. Zoya played it, heart pounding. Dr. Adil, just make sure the documents say they're adopted. The payment will be cleared once they're out of the country. That was it. That was proof. Setting the trap, Detective Imran spoke to his trusted contacts. They planned a secret operation, a sting. We'll invite Dr. Adil to a fake charity event, Imran explained. You'll be there too, Zoya. He won't. Suspect a thing, and we'll record everything. Zoya was nervous. But what if he recognizes me? Imran smiled. You'll be in disguise. The event, 3 days later, Zoya entered the fancy hotel, wearing a simple blue dress and thick glasses. No one looked twice at her. Dr. Adil was standing near the stage, shaking hands and smiling like a hero. Zoya walked slowly toward him. She pretended to be part of the organizing team. She offered him a welcome drink, and with it, a folder. A small thank you for your donation, she said. He opened the folder. Inside were fake documents, showing another adoption deal. His eyes lit up, and then he said the words they needed. Perfect. I'll wire the rest tonight. These girls will be gone before anyone knows. Imran stepped out from behind a curtain. You're under arrest, Dr. Adil. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted. Policemen surrounded him. The real enemy had been caught. The World Reacts news spread quickly. City's child welfare head arrested in trafficking case. Brave teenager exposes criminal network. People were shocked. Some cried. Some apologized for not believing Zoya earlier. But Zoya didn't want attention. She just wanted peace for the girls. And justice for her father. One last visit a week later, Zoya stood at her father's grave. She placed a small flower. I found him, Papa, she whispered. The man behind it all. She held up a newspaper with the headline, Zoya Aftab, the girl who didn't give up. I was scared, but I trusted God in the dark, and he showed me the truth. The wind blew softly, as if her father was answering, I'm proud of you, my warrior. Peace begins to grow. The shelter of light now had 10 girls. Zoya added new beds. A second teacher joined. Donations came in from kind people all over the country, but Zoya stayed simple. She still swept the floors. She still made tea for the little ones, because she remembered what it felt like to be unseen. And she promised to never let another girl feel that way again. It had been 1 full year since Zoya escaped the shelter, 1 year since she exposed Miss Rima, since she uncovered the truth about her father, since she stood in the dark, afraid, alone, and still moved forward. Now, the shelter of light had become more than just a home. It had become a symbol of hope. Girls came in crying and left brave. A letter arrives one cold morning. While sweeping the front yard, Zoya noticed a letter in the mailbox. It had no stamp, just her name. She opened it slowly. Inside was a handwritten note. Zoya, your journey has inspired us. We want to offer you a scholarship to study social work in London. Fully funded. The world needs people like you. Women for Change. Foundation Zoya stared at the paper, her hands shaking. London? It was her dream. To learn more, to grow, to help better. But how could she leave the girls? How could she walk away from the shelter? A difficult choice. That night, Zoya sat with Mrs. Farida and Sana. I don't know what to do, she said. This chance is once in a lifetime, but so is this shelter. Mrs. Farida smiled. Zoya, you planted the seed. Now it's time to water others. Sana nodded. You made us strong. Now it's your turn. Zoya looked around at the shelter, at the walls she painted, the beds she arranged, the girls laughing in the back room. It hurt her to think of leaving, but deep inside, she heard her father's voice again. Keep walking. Even in the dark, The light will follow. The farewell Zoya made the decision. She packed a small bag. The girls all cried when she told them, but she hugged each one, whispering, "I'm not leaving you. I'm making room for more of you." She left the shelter in Sana's hands. Ronnie, the little girl who once couldn't speak, gave her a drawing of a house with stars above it. "This is your light," she said softly. Zoya kissed her forehead. "It's our light, Ronnie." A New World London was cold, busy, big. Zoya felt like a small leaf in a giant river, but she stayed strong. She studied hard. She spoke at events. She met people from all over the world, people who had also survived darkness. One day, after a talk, a woman came up to her and said, "Your story gave me the courage to leave my abusive husband." "Thank you." Zoya smiled. Even far from home, her light was shining. An unexpected call 6. Months later, Zoya received a video call from Sana. The screen showed the shelter of light, now painted fresh, with new beds and happy children. "You won't believe it," Sana said, excited. "A local business donated land. We're building a bigger shelter." Zoya couldn't hold back her tears. "You did this," Sana said. "No," Zoya replied, smiling. "We did." Honoring her father. Before she returned home, Zoya organized a small ceremony in her father's memory at her university. She shared his story, his courage, how he stood up for the truth and died for it. At the end of her speech, she said, "My father taught me to trust God even when the path is dark. And I've learned the light is not always at the end of the tunnel. Sometimes we are the light, and the world needs us to shine." The crowd stood and clapped, but Zoya just closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you, Papa." Returned to home after. 1 year in London, Zoya returned home. When she stepped out of the plane, a group of girls ran toward her. They held signs. "Welcome back, Zoya Appa. Our light has returned." She hugged them all, laughing and crying at the same time. She walked back into the shelter, now expanded and full of life. There were stories on every wall, and one picture hanging at the center. Her father, smiling. A new beginning. Zoya didn't go back to the shelter just to stay. She opened a training center nearby to teach others how to open safe homes in other cities. She worked with the government to change adoption laws. She helped build a helpline for girls in danger. Zoya became not just a survivor, she became a leader. Closing scene. The last light one evening, Zoya stood on the rooftop just like she did long ago. The city lights sparkled below. A little girl from the shelter came up beside her. "Appa," she asked, "how did you become so brave?" Zoya knelt down and smiled. "I wasn't brave," she said. "I was scared, just like you, but I walked anyway, and I trusted that God was with me, even in the dark." The girl nodded. "Will I be brave too?" Zoya hugged her. "You already are." As they looked up at the stars, Zoya whispered, "Sometimes we're one step away. One step from freedom, one step from healing, one step from the light. Just trust, even when you can't see the path, because that's where miracles begin." And in the silence of the night, the last light kept shining.